anytime, any day. Why not right now? Stop looking up to your boss and start being your own boss. Don't work for paychecks. Work for dreams with no regrets. This is Cracking the Entrepreneur Code. If you have the passion, we'll create the blueprint. Now, your host. You know him from his 7 tips to build the business you always wanted, and now you're about to hear a lot more. Jack H.M. Wong.
Welcome to another episode of Cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast show. And I'm your host, Jack. Today, we have another very interesting angle to tackle some problems or challenges that entrepreneurs might be facing. That is, to have a clear goal, to be able to stay focused, and to be able to do what you love with passion, with energy. So on my show today, I have got a very great guy by the name of Sam Fragoza. He is actually a songwriter, a children's books author, a video blogger, or I should say vloggers, and of course he's a very creative man. What's so good about him is that he is able to stay focused of making an impact with his work and transform people's life all over the world. So thank you, Sam, for being on my show. How are you today?
Jake, thanks for having me, man. That was a heck of an intro. I appreciate all the love you're sending my way. Yeah, I love being here. And like you said, I'm an artist and entrepreneur, and I try to do my best to spread the love, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Can you share with the audiences something about your background? It's like, what makes you decide to become an author, music guy, and then a vlogger? Like, what happened during your early days?
Yeah, so growing up, a lot of people don't know this about me. I'm actually dyslexic. I didn't read until the age of 23. And so growing up, I had to find ways to be creative and ways to have workarounds. And I ended up finding a lot of art. I think that art and sports saved someone like me who really struggled in school. And I went the normal path, you know. I went to college and I got a couple degrees and I did that whole jazz. And then I realized after doing that, I was living someone else's desire. And I think overcoming my reading obstacles is the big kicker for me that kind of sprung me into, hey, I made it this far. Kind of doing my own thing. And I beat all the odds. You know, I'm a pretty avid reader now. But to be here and to have a couple degrees and to have the backup plan, I might as well do my passions. I might as well do what I love instead of living somebody else's dream, making money for somebody else. And I think the fact that I get to speak into other people's lives and I get to kind of take the path that's less walked, even though that path is sometimes very chaotic and sometimes it doesn't seem like I know where I am. There's a great quote that I always go back to. Even if you can't see where you are, it doesn't mean you're lost. And I feel like the entrepreneurial life is kind of like that. It seems like you're completely lost and then you'll get a breakthrough and you're like, okay, I'm still on the right path. But I think those early years for me, finding my little niche of being the artsy guy, that kind of led me down this path. I was always a musician. I kind of fell into doing children's book writing in college and I just dig on all of it, man. I fell into acting and production stuff with video because of music. I went out to LA and I was trying to do the music scene out there and music is a cutthroat industry. So I started doing acting and production work to kind of supplement my income. And here we are. I'm actually sitting in California right now on a production shoot. We shot yesterday and shot today. So I'm just trying to work as much as I can and affect as many people's lives as I can.
If I were just to give you my sense of like how I felt just now, is like we have the traditional culture, like I always in my show like to bring some of the Asians culture because my guests primarily are from North America, so I always want to balance the cultural issue here. So first of all, the traditional parents in Asia have given their kids a very different view about being dyslexic. Because by being dyslexic, the parents tend to be very worried about their kids' future because they can't really spell, they can't really catch up with the word in school. Those is the number one concern. And you know what? They would deem their kids as slow learners. And what is even worse is that they would, instead of helping their kids to survive, they will load a lot of additional assignments to make sure that the kids are able to catch up. Yeah, so over the years, what happened is that the kids felt very lost because of the tremendous amount of work and they don't enjoy study. I would say that they may feel that they have lost the meaning of their life. And I'm speaking really, like I'm being transparent here. That happened to my youngest daughter because my daughter at the age of 5 was deemed to be dyslexic. She couldn't spell properly, and every single week the school actually gave spelling test, and she failed miserably. So because I know the situation, and as a non-traditional, unconventional parent, what my wife and I have done is to essentially give her support instead of like loading her with many additional assignments. Maybe she did only 2 out of 10, we say great. Well, you can do greater next time to make it to 3 out of 10. Like parents usually cannot accept that. What 3 out of 10 is still a fail. So I know that it's not easy for someone's life, I mean, especially the early childhood, to be suffering in an environment that is not really supportive. So I'm glad that you share with us a story whereby you were able to find resources to take yourself out of that kind of environment, find something that you truly love, and then you enjoy doing it every single day. So for me, that is why I say that I take you to this show because of this inspirational story. And I really want not just the entrepreneurs to listen to your story, but also the parents. Parents should listen to this episode because that is a very inspirational story. So thank you for that, really.
Definitely. Have you ever heard of the author Malcolm Gladwell? Yeah. So
Yes,
in
of
his
course.
book, it's a parallel to kind of how someone who's young and dyslexic grows up. It's called David and Goliath. I think it's his latest book, and it talks about desirable deficiencies.
Right.
That book, and then the other book that I really like is The Gift of Dyslexia. And it's been such a attribute for me to be able to look at the world with a creative mind. Once I figured out how to read, being a dyslexic person, we just process information differently. We see things in 3 dimensions, and we see pictures, not words. So phonetics are very hard. But once you crack the code of your own brain and learn how to read, it kind of, I always think it's like a superpower. Hey, I'm dyslexic, so I have all these interpersonal skills and these communication skills and nonverbal reading skills. And now I can read too. So I almost feel like a double threat. I'm like, man, I'm unstoppable. But I think it's great that what you guys are doing and showing support. I hit it really well. No one knew, not even my parents knew that I was dyslexic. No one knew I couldn't read until I got kicked out of college. And before I finally addressed my reading program, my problem, I eventually went back. But I think that's great, man. It's great that you guys are showing some support. And definitely, I think technology helps too. Speak text is a big.
Well, technology helps a lot. And more importantly, I believe that the traditional world that I used to live in, at that time, who actually on planet know what dyslexia is about? It's like nowadays, I notice that there are so many kids with special needs. In fact, my eldest and my youngest are special needs kids. And the reason why they are deemed special needs is that if they were to be born in 30 years ago, they would not be identified that they're dyslexic or with some kind of like special needs, because at that time, nobody knew about that. So it's basically for us to be aware of this issue, and we provide the support in such a way that we can do to help them not just cope with school, but mean to be able to cope with their life, because their life is definitely more challenging than my generation. So that's how I see as a parent. So coming back to your story, like you have done so many things, like because you realize your love of music, you like to actually create children's book. How would you describe your success in your journey as an entrepreneur?
Well, first, I'd say that success is relative to perspective. I have very many friends and even family members who would look at what I'm doing and say, I'm not successful. There are things in my life that I have done I was very successful at. Like if you want to say, hey, I produced an album, I was successful. And when I was in high school, I was a successful wrestler. And I wanted to publish a book, and I was successful. As far as financially successful and being able to do this, and the entrepreneurial road is so much different. I look at it and kind of like you take big leap. This is the best way to explain it. When I was 24 years old, I had no degree. I had created nothing. All my friends were out of college. They had already graduated. They had already started to buy houses, right?
Okay.
And they had jobs, right? So I graduated with my undergrad at 24 and my master's degree at 27. When I hit 27, all my friends said, dude, you're so ahead of the game. You got your master's degree. But a year before that, or 2 years before that, I was feeling like I was the one super far behind and people were telling me that I need to pull my life together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of in the same spot now. So over the next 5 years, my friends bought houses, my friends got married, my friends furthered their careers. What I did is I laid the foundation for an album. I put out an album. I laid the foundation for production work. I laid the foundation for children's books. I laid the foundations for school readings to go around. I started a couple different companies and started reading. I'm doing a reading program now. Mine's a listening program, but I listen to a book a week on audible.com. And I'm just in the process of laying a foundation to kind of set up my entrepreneurial success. And right now, my friends are in that same spot where they're telling me, man, like, I can't believe you don't have a full-time job. You're really messing up your future, right?
Yes.
And every time I go to date a girl, she's like, man, you don't have a job. I don't know how this is going to work. And what they don't understand is I'm in a year or two, I'm going to take a quantum leap in front of everybody else. And they're going to say the exact same thing to me of, how did that even happen? Like, you're so far ahead of the game right now. How did that happen? It happened because I took the time to lay the foundation for things that are scalable. Nothing is scalable about their job. Everything that I'm doing right now is scalable. Everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I'm doing that's not scalable. So in 3 or 4 years, all that stuff is going to get turned on, and I'm going to have 4 or 5 books out and 4 or 5 albums out. And everything, all the income flow is just going to get turned on, and I'm going to be ahead of the game. And it's such a hard path to walk because every single day my peers look at me like I'm not successful. It's so hard to look in the mirror and just remind yourself that you're not crazy. You're doing what you should be doing. And it's definitely a hard path to walk. You need the constant reminder, and you need a couple friends around you that are just as crazy. I got 2 friends that I call on a daily just to remind me. They're like, hey, man, you're in the deep waters. That's right where you need to be. Everybody else is in the safe harbor with their safe job and their safe little area. They're in the comfort zone, and you are in the deep, deep waters. But that's where the big fish are caught, man. They're not caught in the harbor. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? You've just hit the nail of the very important message of all entrepreneurs. Because my group of people, when they decide to become entrepreneurs, they were surrounded with people who are like what your friends used to say, hey man, you're crazy, you have no job, how can you survive? Share with my group of people that, you know what, I have been like out of job for 7 years. I'm very happy to be unemployed. And people said, what are you talking about exactly? You're unemployed. So poor thing. No. I'm very happy to be unemployed. You don't get it because you are employed. So we are living in different worlds. And like you said, well, we just have to operate in the other manner, which, yes, there is no consistency, no stability, no predictability, but we just have to keep on doing what we have to do. And one day, you know what, like you said, when we have set all the nice foundation, the result will be in quantum leap. And you know what? We will be there one day. Yes, the question is that we don't know when we'll be there, but I know that we will never reach there if we don't do anything.
You just hit the nail on the head. I think that's the difference between someone, I forget who it was. Maybe it was Steve Harvey. He was given an analogy. He was talking about, he was like, man, you got this great idea. You got this parachute, right? You got this talent, this amazing thing. And he said, you're standing at the edge of the cliff and you're wondering, oh, man, this parachute is awesome. And I can't wait for everyone to see how awesome this parachute is. But there's a huge problem. In order for the parachute to open, you got to jump off the cliff.
Yes.
It's a huge, huge problem. And that parachute doesn't open right away. It doesn't open. You got to get going fast enough down towards destruction before that thing opens up and saves you. And everybody looks up and like, dang, that was legit. Now I'm on the way down. Parachute's not fully open.
Yep. Same here. We are still alive. I mean, that's the great news. The not so great news is that, well, one day we will hit the ground if we stop doing anything. So the journey has started, and we just have to continue. And people said to me, hey, it's good to be an entrepreneur because, wow, now I've got the time and the control of my life.
You're in Singapore, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I'm jealous of you because that's like entrepreneur haven right there.
Really?
For
okay.
Oh man, I've been reading a lot of Singapore, and when I heard you were there, I was like, see, man, I got to get out there. That's where it's happening.
Well, I would have thought that in America, the entrepreneurship spirit is higher than that in Singapore. I mean, maybe Singapore has given you guys a very nice superficial picture, but deep
Yeah.
down in Singapore, on the ground, I can tell you that the government is still looking for ways. What happened, the
Yeah.
government policy right now is that they recognize the fact that the skills of the laborers are outdated. So what they are doing is that to actually get
Gotcha.
the laborers to acquire new skills so that they are able to take on new jobs. And I repeat, the word is jobs. What you see is one thing, but deep down, I'm confronted with a lot of Singaporeans friends, and they are still very much on job focus. In other words,
Yeah.
when they graduate, they're looking for jobs. They're
I
not
think
doing what we're doing.
the big pull, I think, from what I've been reading is the cost of living. I actually just relocated. I was living in California, but the taxes here are rough, and then the cost of living here is super, super high.
Yes.
I actually just moved to the Midwest. My cost of living went way down, way down. I mean, rent out in California is maybe $600-700 a month to rent a room, and right now I'm renting a whole house for like $200 out in Missouri.
Wow.
So yeah, cost of living is super, super low out there.
Yeah.
And again, it's just one more way to kind of check my liabilities column. I'm trying to cut that sucker down and build up the asset column. You know how that goes.
Yes, of course. We always say that being able to do what we love and not attached to a job allow us to have this mobility. Like you move to the Midwest from California, if you have a job, I mean, sometimes the job requirement is that you can't move out of California. You have to be there. And then you suffer from high rent, high cost of living. It's like that's the freedom that I believe entrepreneurs can do with the advent of technology and internet. If we are doing some kinds of like for myself, I'm doing consulting work. It doesn't matter where I'm doing this. Like I was one time transiting in Los Angeles International Airport. I did my advice to my clients in the airport. I have done that.
Yep.
So it's very flexible for me to do my things wherever I am and whenever I want to. So to me, that is the beauty of being an entrepreneur. So talking about your situation, like you moved to the Midwest and you're still doing what you're doing. Like the success of an entrepreneur is obviously he knows what he wants. But for you, how do you sustain this momentum by knowing exactly what you want? How do you reinforce your goals? Do you have any rituals or your habit or routine that enables you to stay focused?
Yeah, I have a couple different things. If you've ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Assets and Liabilities board, I have an Assets and Liabilities board that sits right above my bed. And then right next to it, I have a project board with all the different projects that I have pinned up on it. Above that, I have all the different quotes from vision without execution is hallucination. And in 20 years, you'll be more disappointed by the things that you don't do than by the things that you do. So cast off the bell lines, like all my favorite quotes, basically, that I jump back to those. But I think for me, biggest thing is to remind yourself daily of why you do what you do. There's an author by the name of Simon Sinek, and his book Start with Why. I do Christian contemporary music and I do children's books, and those are my two why. I do children's books because I want to tell people about being dyslexic and you can be successful regardless of you struggling to read, especially in today's society with the technology that we have. And then two, my music ministry is called #MoreThanRules. My mission with that is to make sure that people understand that God is so much more than a bunch of rules that you got to follow to get him to love you. I'm just really trying to spread love and grace with my music and not worry about too much about trying to be holier than people or making people follow what I want them to follow. I really just want to love on people, you know? I just want to show people love and grace through my music, and that kind of drives me. I will admit this. So I've been full-time, no job for 3 years. During that time, after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and reading all these different books, I went and I found financing for my album. I found financing for my second book, and then I found financing to get my first book printed. And so during those 3 years, I took a lot of debt out. This is kind of the nice thing about being an entrepreneur and never feeling like you're subjected to a job. You always have the option to go back to work
Yep.
for
Options.
3 or 4 years and pick up some income. So the cool thing about what I've done the last 3 years is I laid some awesome foundations of residual income that could possibly come in from things that are scalable. So I just accepted a sales job. What I used to do is sales before I did this. And so for the next couple years, I'll be doing sales again, making significant income. And it's only a 9 to 5. So you know, as well as I know, that's only 40 hours a week. And for an entrepreneur, that's half the week. So really, I'm only going to be working half time the way that I see it. And I can still do my music on the weekends. I'm actually going to use most of my income to pay someone full time to book me. There won't be any time that I'm not working. I'll be working a day job. And then during the nights, I'll be playing shows, and I'll have someone who's doing all my secretary work and booking for me and booking book reads on my days off. And it's going to be a crazy 2 or 3 years out in the Midwest with a lot of work to be done and a lot more foundation to be done. But it's so cool going back into a quote unquote job. Man, I don't feel any pressure like I need the job. If the job went away, if I get a phone call tomorrow, I haven't even started yet. If I get a phone call tomorrow and they're like, hey, you know what? We decided we don't need you. Okay, cool. It wouldn't matter a lick because I've been doing this on my own for so long. It's just, man, it's flawless. On this trip, this is a great example. So I flew back to California, and my plan is to come to California, visit my family because I haven't seen them for a while, and then grab the rest of my stuff and drive back to the Midwest. During the trip, instead of just coming out to California, I booked myself solid. From the day that I landed, I've had gigs. And so it's a nonstop week and a half of working. So people are like, hey, you flew out to California for a nice little vacation. Yeah, nice little vacation where I'm going to make a couple $1,000s working and then drive back. It's not really vacation. I'm doing what I love, you know?
Exactly.
I got it's Read Across America coming up next week or this week right now. I got book reads every day till Friday. Yeah,
wow.
So, I mean, you already know. You know how it goes.
Amazing.
I'm loving it.
Amazing.
It's crazy.
What you have just shared with us, 2 things that I'm hearing. One is I sense that you are a very big fan of Robert Kiyosaki, which is a great guy.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, if you do not understand what he is saying, you miss the point, and you really have to get his stuff, reread maybe 100 times to get it. Very, very important. The asset and liability, because successful people focuses on asset and liability, not income and expense. That is the key.
Jeez.
If the audiences don't understand what it is, oh my God, they miss the big part of that. Okay, that is the first thing. I would love to actually get you another time. Then we can spend time to talk about the finance part, the asset liability. I mean, that would be another great episode. But we only have that limit of time. So I just want to spin off the discussion to the second part. Because I do not know whether you noticed that you said that, well, I can be an entrepreneur, but I can take on assignments from anybody. I can go anywhere. I can basically earn my income anywhere. Because what you have got is a skill. And in my group, just 2 weeks ago, we were talking about entrepreneurs are suffering from not having the income consistently because when they leave their job, they don't have what we call a skill. And the skill that I always talk about is not a normal skill, but what I would call as a high income earning skill. The skill that allows you to derive and earn the income that is able to sustain your cost of living, regardless of the economic condition, regardless of where you are at that point in time. That skill is actually portable because as you travel to different parts of America, you are asked to do sales, the skill is always be with you. I love that bit. My group is struggling with this concept of knowing how to sell and how to improve their selling skill. I would just want to take a few minutes of your time to talk about what does selling mean to you. And how do you get good at selling?
Well, the only thing you get good at anything, I think, is repetition. Repetition. When I first started in sales, a lot of script, and scripts are difficult because you feel like you're reading. It goes back to, again, Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. People buy why you do something, not what you do. If you're selling something just to sell something, it's probably going to be a pretty tough sell. Grant Cardone, and he would say, believe in your product. You know, I actually just finished reading The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort. And he would say, again, if you're selling something that you don't believe in, then you're selling the wrong thing. It's not that you're bad at sales. It's that you don't even like your product. So how are you going to sell it to somebody else? So that's the first thing. You got to like what you're selling and believe in what you're selling. The other thing is repetition. And I mean, you're never going to be the best at sales. It's a constant growth thing. If you haven't read at least 5 to 10 sales books, then you're not even taking it seriously yet. That's what I would say. I mean, you got to read so much. I think I've read 15 and maybe 20, and I still don't even feel like, man, I got to keep reading more. I need more information. I need more confidence in this thing called selling, because we all sell every single day of our lives. We are selling constantly.
God. Oh my
constantly.
Goodness.
It doesn't matter where you work. You are in sales. You just don't know it.
God, I keep using "oh my God" many times is because you probably are the 4th person of this month who have talked about sales as, first of all, you've got to believe in what you're selling. In fact, in one of the interviews I had with a guest from Singapore, his name is Kenneth Chiu. He's an author of his book, Mother Industrialist. He's from Singapore. And he said the same thing to me. He has been in sales for 10 years. And he said to me that the success of a sales professional is, number one, you've got to believe in what you are selling. Because if you don't, then people can smell it. People can say, hey, you are selling me something. I don't want to buy from you.
Yeah, and no one likes to be sold. People love to buy, though.
Wow,
people love to buy.
That is also my favorite quote. Like, nobody wants to be sold, but they want to buy from you.
Everybody loves to buy.
Everybody loves that. Yeah, that's right. And the second thing that you said about sales is repetition. So we talk about the fact that in order to be good at sales, you've got to practice. And how do you practice? Well, having a script is good, but more importantly is to internalize the script so that it becomes your own version. And the only way of doing that is really to do role play.
Yep. Role play. You got to know your product too. You should know your product inside, outside, upside down, and backwards. And if you don't, then get back in there and keep getting on it, because then it becomes a little easier. Nothing should surprise you about your product, or no question should throw you off, because you should know every single question that has ever been asked about your product.
Exactly. Wow. This can be another episode about sales. So we can have an episode on Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, and another episode about sales. Gee, what's interesting discussion here. So we are coming up to half an hour mark. So I just want to wrap the show up by asking you 2 more questions. This question is not anticipated, but I feel that it's important to end this episode on high note. The question is, what is a mission that you carry out in your life?
World domination.
I put it on spotlight, but I think it's a great question to end this.
On a very serious note,
yes.
One of my very good friends, his name's David, and he's one of the guys I talk to him every night. He'll call me up and he'll say, hey, what are you trying to do tonight? And I'll say, same thing I'm trying to do every night, try to take over the world. Honestly, my main mission is to make as large of an impact in people's lives as possible. I am a firm believer that you're not going to take as much money as I would like to make in this world. It's not because I want to make money. It's because I want to use that money to do good things with that money. You're not going to take anything with you, man. I could shut this phone off right now and I could die in the car crash on my way to the next location for this shoot. You know, we don't know when we're going to go. I'm sitting right next to the highway. Someone could swerve and hit me and I'd be done. I'm not going to take any cash with me. But my job in this world is to, 1, spread as much love and grace as I can to people around me, and 2, make as much money as humanly possible, as I'm capable of doing. That way I can take that money and give it back where I see fit to give it back. In the places that touch my heart, the places that pull on my heartstrings, that's where I want to put it. We have so many. My biggest heart pull is probably unwanted children. That's a big heart pull for me. And I'll tell this to pretty much everybody I talk to, is my mission is to make as much cash as possible. So I want to eradicate that problem. That's a huge goal. If I just do a little bit of it, I think that'll be a life that I could be happy living, even if that means that I'm living a little below my means and some other people a little bit better off. And that's my goal, man. I really want to do that. I want to do that through my music, and I want to do that through my book. And really, that's my mission. Take over the world so I can give it back That's the mission, man.
Yep, and that's echo what you have just said. You have quoted Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, 2 times in the last 30 minutes. And that is a very good demonstration of once you know your why, and you have the means, you have the resources, and you stay focused, and you reach your goal one day. Who knows, maybe tomorrow, maybe 1 year, but whichever way it is, well, as long as you take action, you'll be there one day. I believe that that's a great question. And the last question is the routine one, like how do we find out more about you? So that would be an easy one to answer.
Yeah, right now I'm pumping up my Instagram page. I'm trying to put everything on there. If you just search hashtag more than rules, or you can search my name, Sam Fragoza, Fragoza. You type in either of those to a search on Instagram, and you'll find a bunch of my music on there. I do music requests. I post about my book. I basically run everything through my Instagram now. It makes it pretty easy.
That's very good. So audiences, check out Sam's Instagram and you'll find a lot of his artwork. The point that we are making is that I want you to feel his energy, his passion about doing what he's doing. I feel that in the last 30 minutes, you have demonstrated to me that you are very passionate, you are very focused, you have very high energy. And you know what? When you sold me a story to ask me to be on my show, you said that your story is going to be an inspirational one. And I can happily confirm at this point in time that I have been sold.
All right.
I have been sold. So thank you very much for being my awesome guest. And I look forward to having you on board 2 more times. One on Rich Dad Poor Dad and the other one is on
I'd
sales.
love that. That would be amazing.
Let's do that on the other occasions. But meanwhile, I think we have to end the show. So once again, thank you, Sam, for being our awesome guest. And you know what, audiences, hope they enjoyed this episode. And you know what, the next episode, I'm going to bring on another successful entrepreneur to share with you his wisdom, his insight, and his experiences to help you take your business to the next level. Jack Wang here, cracking the Entrepreneur Code podcast show. Signing off now, and have a great day.
To continue cracking the Entrepreneur Code, subscribe for more episodes and download the Amazon bestseller, Cracking the Entrepreneur Code, 7 Tips to Build the Business You Always Wanted at crackingentrepreneur.com. Learn more about author and host Jack H.M. Wang and book your 30-minute discovery session to overcome any professional challenge at jackhmwang.com/apply.